Hi everybody. Okay, welcome to the next video for our Plexus training group. Those of you who have followed me or joined any of my groups or seminars that I've done, you know that I often refer to the body as a temple. And when I do any type of coaching or anything like that, I often refer to our efforts as rebuilding your temple. So that's actually the name of my business, Rebuilding Your Temple LLC. So this next topic that I want to talk to you guys about is what I consider to be one of the most important parts of the temple, and that is the foundation. Think about it, okay? If the foundation of a house isn't sturdy, then the house itself is not sturdy. It doesn't matter, you know, how good the furnace is, the wiring, the framework, whatever. If the foundation isn't sturdy, the house isn't sturdy. I believe it's the same with the temple of the body. If the foundation of the body is not sturdy, aka healthy, then the body itself is not going to be healthy. It doesn't matter how many macros you eat or what kind of diet plan you follow, plain and simple. So the question then becomes, what is the foundation of the temple? Well, Hippocrates summed it up perfectly when he said that all disease begins in the gut. So if all disease begins in the gut, then on the flip side, you know, all true and lasting health begins in the gut also. That's kind of the mindset of where I'm going here. So the foundation of the temple then is gut health, specifically the microbiome. What is the microbiome? Okay, I talked a little bit about it. I touched on it briefly in the last video. But the microbiome is like an ecosystem of bacteria, funguses, viruses, things, yeasts that live inside of you and on your skin. It's like a network of tiny organisms located in the gut, mouth, throat, skin, colon, genital tract, nose. And while these bacteria are tiny, they're microorganisms, the microbiome itself is not tiny. It is made up of approximately 100 trillion microbial cells, as well as all the genes that these microbial cells harbor. So this is an enormous ecosystem, okay? In fact, these bacteria cells, they outnumber our human cells 10 to 1. That means we're actually more bug than we are human, which is kind of creepy, kind of cringy, I get it, but it's true, and this is why this is so important. Why are these little buggers important to our health? Because the microbiome houses both good and bad bacteria. So as you can imagine, it's very important for the good guys to outnumber the bad guys. There are different types or strains then too, like, so you have the good guys, you have the bad guys, but amongst the good guys, there's different types or strains of bacteria in the microbiome, different kinds of good guys. You can think of it like a forest that houses different types of animals and different types of plants. And there's not just one of each type of animal or one of each type of plant. There are many of each type. So that's kind of like the microbiome too. There are many strains, many groups, and many within each of those groups. So I have a children's book coming out. It's called Rebuilding Little Temples, where I describe this microbiome as a community or a city, okay, of living things, living organisms. I'm kind of going to talk a little bit about the microbiome here in that context, primarily because I know a lot of you hate it when I get all technical and go off on my tangents. So I'm going to try to just be simple and to the point and explain to you what these groupings are and why they're so, quote, foundational. So in this microbial city, this microbial community, like I said, there's good guys, there's bad guys, like in any city, okay? The good guys are workers, I guess you'd say. They contribute to the good of the city, of the community. In the microbiome, the good guys, the good microbes, contribute to the health of the body. Okay, does that make sense? So there are several different types of good guys, several different types of workers. The first type are what I consider to be builders, okay, builder microbes. And what they do is they promote bone growth and remodeling. Other ones kind of make or produce hormones, vitamins, neurotransmitters, these types of things. But essentially, builder microbes all are doing just that. They're making, producing, building things that are positive for the body. So that's what they're doing in the microbiome. The next group or strain, I call these the fighters, okay? These are like the soldier microbes in the microbiome. These microbes modulate immune function. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so 70% or more of your immune system is located in the gut. That's huge. Now these soldier bacteria, as I call them, they help your immune system's T cells develop. They're kind of teaching them the difference between a foreign substance and your body's own tissue. So these soldier microbes, they're like army generals. They're stimulating the activation of immune cells. Basically, they're kind of like telling the ground troops of the immune system how to do battle and what to do. They make sure the immune system is not like super hyperactive, like working too hard, being too gung-ho, to where it's causing, allergies, inflammation, autoimmune issues, like a general overstimulation of immunity. But it also makes sure that it's not underactive or ineffective either. So, it has to be strong enough that it's fighting off infections, toxins, that sort of thing, to kind of protect the body. The third group are what I call like the cleanup crew, okay? These microbes are responsible for cleaning or detoxifying the body in some way. So some of these bacteria, they actually will alter gene expression of the liver and change the way it kind of detoxifies us, especially from medications and toxins. But there's other bacteria in the cleanup crew, and they, they're in the large intestine, and they help make butyrate, which increases glutathione, which is the body's most powerful antioxidant and probably most powerful detoxification agent. It's very important to the liver too. Another group in the cleanup crew is a group called the estrobolome, which helps metabolize or detoxify us from like dirty or the harmful estrogens, so that we don't have too much or imbalanced estrogen. So, and remember, estrogen is a growth hormone. So, it's very involved in not only weight, but also certain estrogenic cancers like breast cancer. So it's really important that we have that part of the cleanup crew too. Number 4, the fourth type that live in the microbiome are what I consider to be like the delivery drivers. Now, these microbes help get us what we need, I guess, so to speak. They transport signals to our organs, they influence brain chemistry, and they even help break down the foods that we eat so that we have enough fuel and energy. For example, some microbes help us, utilize complex carbohydrates. Other ones help us, they assist in protein metabolism or fat metabolism, and they help us absorb nutrients. Some of them are builders. They help us make vitamins. They help to make vitamins, but some of them are like delivery drivers, where they help the foods that we eat, they help pull the nutrients out of those foods, the vitamins out of the foods. And also, like I said last video, Akkermansia is a strain of bacteria that helps regulate metabolism. So it helps determine whether you have a fast metabolism or a slow metabolism. So these are kind of they're different kinds of microbes that live in the microbiome, but like I said, they have different jobs, and they're all considered to be good or friendly bacteria because they are contributing to the overall good of the body, okay? Like workers contribute to the good of a community. So these workers do a lot of really important jobs, but they aren't the only ones living there. So there are bad guys too, They're harmful bacteria. And the bad guys are kind of like, they're kind of like the criminals or the scoundrels in the city of the microbiome. They contribute to the disorder of the community, or rather, in this case, they contribute to disease. There's pathogenic bacteria like E. coli, Salmonella, Strep, Staph, C. diff. There's viruses like influenza, HIV, Ebola. There's all kinds of different bad guys, okay? Then there are bad guys that are yeasts. Now, I would like to talk about a very common type of yeast for a minute. I'm going to kind of switch gears. That is living in the microbiome. It's called Candida, and a lot of you have probably heard of it. I've talked about it a ton in other videos. There's actually several different kinds of Candida, but Candida albicans is the one that I'm going to talk about today because it's the most common. Technically, Candida is both good and bad, which I'll explain. But everybody has Candida. We get it on the first day we're born through our mother during in the birth canal. And we're supposed to have it because, like the other good bacteria, it has a very specific job to do. It does assist us with digestion and nutrient absorption to some degree, but its main job is to actually decompose the body when we die. Yuck, I know, okay, but so here's how it works. Candida feeds on like byproducts and dead cells in the body. When we die, these Candida then feed very generously, and then they multiply and they come into their own. And once quiet, harmless yeast, then kind of the more it eats, the more it morphs, and it becomes this very destructive pathogenic organism. Candida, like, it grows tentacles and can kind of burrow down into the host, into the body. It shoots like threads of itself throughout the body into the tissue. And it does this for kind of a quicker and more invasive takeover of the body, because that's what it's designed to do. So like I said, it has a very specific purpose. Now, normally when the body's alive, Candida is kind of harmless, okay, because it's kept at bay by the immune system. But when we die, it gets the go-ahead because the immune system shuts off, okay? And that's when it does its thing. The problem is byproducts and dead cells are not the only thing that Candida feeds on. It also feeds on sugar. So those who eat a high-carb, high-sugar diet can experience a Candida overgrowth while the body is still living. This can be a major problem, okay? Because Candida is so destructive by nature. That's its job. Its job is to destroy. So Candida then, in terms of the analogy of the city or the community, Candida is like the town demolition crew, okay? Or a strain of Wreck-It Ralphs, I guess you could say, in the city of the microbiome. Like, it has a job to do, and it should really only do its job when it's necessary or needed. But if it goes crazy and starts going overboard, then we could have big problems. When it grows and it multiplies and it morphs, with its tentacles, it's going to do its job. It's going to try to decompose the body, even though the body isn't necessarily dead yet. Because it primarily lives in the gut microbiome, although, Candida can also be found in the genital tract and on the skin, and other places, but it primarily lives in the gut. So that's where it starts its demolition, so to speak, okay? It starts where it's at, in the gut. Now, this is problematic, okay? The intestinal lining is built kind of like a concrete block formation or foundation. Like, if you think of a block foundation, it has the bricks, but then it has, they're connected and held together by mortar. So it's the same with the gut lining. The cells of the gut lining are held together by connecting junctions known as tight junction proteins. And these junctions are very porous, okay, for a reason. So they are porous enough to let like important nutrients and fluid pass into the body, but they're tight enough where, you know, larger particles, food, toxins, bacteria can't get through. So it's very protective. Now the problem is when Candida burrows into the intestinal lining, it creates holes in these junctions, all right? Now this situation is known as leaky gut syndrome. What is the problem with leaky gut syndrome? One, think of having holes in the foundation of your house. When you start to get holes in the foundation of your house, you know, you get things down in there that you don't want, whether it be insects, critters, water, whatever. It's not a protective barrier anymore. When you're thinking of the gut lining, okay, you get holes there. Well, now Candida has an open door to the rest of the body. So this makes it easier for it to kind of run rampant and do its dirty work on like other parts, other tissue, other organs. So it becomes very, very problematic, and that's how it can cause a bigger, widespread infection. Two, when the gut is leaky, partially digested food proteins can slip out of the gut. Fats can slip out into the bloodstream. Proteins, you know, these are larger, bigger, undigested pieces, okay? Now, if this happens, the immune system could send out a red flag. Hey, whoa, hold up, there's a foreign substance here. And it's not that food itself is a foreign substance. It's that the food is foreign to that particular area of the body, because food is not supposed to be in the bloodstream like that. Once the body sends out this red flag, then it kind of remembers that substance. So then the next time that food enters the body, the immune response is triggered again, more quickly, more easily. And this is kind of how like food allergies, food sensitivities are, how they develop. Now, if leaky gut continues for a longer period of time and it isn't treated and more things slip out into the bloodstream, toxins, bacteria, viruses, byproducts, those types of things, the immune system increases inflammation because that's what it's supposed to do. And it works overtime to try and to combat all this. Unfortunately, though, the immune system, it's not very good under pressure, okay? Especially if you are lacking those microbes that are the army generals that are helping regulate that immune response. So then what can happen is the immune system can kind of go haywire and can even start to misfire and attack its own tissue. It can even start doing that as a result to something called molecular mimicry. So what the heck is molecular mimicry? Molecular mimicry is when there are substances, food, chemicals, whatever, that leak from the gut, okay, and they mimic or look a whole lot like tissue that's already in the body. It's kind of like Halloween night in the microbial city, okay? The immune system then, it just has a hard time telling what's what. So it can mistakenly attack its own tissue thinking it's one of those foreign invaders that it saw earlier because it looks structurally similar to that foreign substance. And this is how autoimmune disease develops. So let me give you an example, okay? When the immune system attacks thyroid tissue, okay, for example, that's called Hashimoto's disease or Graves' disease, depending on how it affects it. What's interesting is that people who have thyroid autoimmunity oftentimes also have a problem with wheat, okay? So ironically, or maybe not so ironically, the new crossbred forms of wheat that we have nowadays that is primarily what you can buy in the stores, this new wheat this has proteins that look structurally similar to thyroid tissue. So this wheat protein and thyroid tissue are very similar in how they look. So, when you have leaky gut then, and you have this protein seeping out of the body or sleeping out of the gut into the bloodstream, the immune system red flags it, okay? And from there on out, it has the potential to then attack the thyroid because it thinks it's that wheat protein. So it's this, there's a lot of other factors that go into it, but this is kind of how leaky gut can contribute to autoimmune issues. Now, the other autoimmune issues are the same thing or similar. When the immune system attacks the small intestine, it's called celiac disease. When it attacks the protective covering of nerves, it's multiple sclerosis, and so forth and so on. Autoimmune disease is the immune system mistakenly attacking the body. It sounds, I know to some of you, kind of far-fetched, but this is a very widespread problem right now. There are almost 100 different autoimmune diseases currently. And it's been estimated that about 20% of the population is now affected by at least one of them. That's 1 in 5 people. So this is more common than we think. And on top of that, once you have one autoimmune disease, you're 8 times more likely to develop another autoimmune disease if that one is left not addressed properly or left untreated. Now, like I said, Candida, it's not the only culprit for leaky gut syndrome. Other things like toxins, medications, things like that can also wear away at the junctions in the gut lining also. And leaky gut is not the only factor in autoimmunity, but Candida and leaky gut are 2 of the most common culprits. I think because the standard American diet is so dang full of sugar and carbs, plus you add in things like antibiotics, toxins, chemicals, things that are harmful to the good guys, and it's like this perfect storm, you know what I mean? So it is more common than we think.